All right, good morning to everybody. Welcome to today's live stream. Today we're going to be talking about should private security guards have to pass mental health screening before they can work? And this would be in any capacity. This would be armed, this would be unarmed, this would be everything from your run-of-the-mill Allied Universal, watch a door, watch a parking lot, security guard, all the way up to any level of armed security or executive protection. I am actually driving right now on my way to the gun range. I'm going to get some work in with my red dot. I about 6 months ago made the decision to take the red dot off of all of my pistols and just start utilizing what's known as a ghost ring sight. Ghost ring sights primarily are generally found on rifles, but I've really come to like ghost ring sights on my pistols for a couple of different reasons. Number one, a ghost ring sight basically simulates an analog version of a red dot. You have a circle on the back sight, you have your red or orange or green front sight that gives you kind of that same reticle view. And with it being analog, meaning that it's not battery powered or digital or anything like that, you have less opportunity for it to fail. I mean, if it doesn't fall off, it's there, right? I've had a lot of situations where I've gone to training or I've gone to certification. The day that I needed my red dot to work, that's when the battery dies, or that's when it flies off. There's all kinds of issues because you have different points of contact, you have different points of mount, and things happen, things fail. So for me, working in a situation where I need my firearm to always be ready and functioning, I've liked the reliability of having the ghost ring sight. That being said, red dots are just kind of, popular. It's what you find on most firearms. And if we get into a situation where our guns are being leased out to us or provided to us by any of the departments, whether I'm working for the company that I'm working for now, or if I move somewhere else and a firearm is issued to me, potentially it could have a red dot. So I just want to make sure that I maintain that level of training. So that's where I'm heading right now, and I thought this would be a great time to talk about it. So what would be some of the reasonings behind needing mental health screening for private security? You're not a law enforcement officer. You do not have, the authority of the state. You do not have the authority to, for the most part, in most situations and circumstances, remove someone's access to liberty in any sort of way. So why would we need to have mental health screening? Well, if you're working in the public and you're working around public in any capacity, this might be something that people are concerned about. Not only do you have the obvious issues of mass shootings or problems of people doing anything or getting involved in things that they're not necessarily supposed to, your everyday situations where private security is working, those are all interests of business, right? And we talk about how everything in private security always falls back to liability. I don't think that we've had a situation that I know of or I'm aware of. If you guys have any knowledge about what I'm going to say, please feel free to put it in the comments. I don't know that there's ever been a situation where something has happened. Security guard has gone overboard. Security guard has violated someone's rights. Security guard has killed someone, where ultimately it's come out that this person had a legitimate mental health issue. Now, I would imagine that under the circumstances, if any of those things that I just listed had ever happened, and it was found out that a security guard did have a known mental health issue, and he was still hired, and he was still allowed to work in that environment before something happened, that would create a high level of liability. Now, I'm talking about this from a hypothetical perspective because I don't know what the legality is of knowing people's past medical history, how that can play into whether or not they're hired for certain positions. However, I will say that all it takes is one situation. We've seen this. We've seen this with gun control. We've seen this with a lot of different laws that have come down over the past 10 to 15, 25 years. All it takes is one situation, one security guard that legitimately goes off the rails, goes schizoid, and there's a long history of this person having problems. And that could be a game changer and a seismic shift for the security industry. So in that regard, you could put a lot of people's fears at bay. You could potentially lower any legal liability for companies or industries or areas where private security is working. And maybe you could build public trust in the industry of private security. Some of the drawbacks, obviously, would be that this would be potentially a huge invasion of a person's privacy. Who would pay for it, right? Would this be another fee that's incurred by private security individuals who a lot of times don't have the money to pay for what we're already being asked to pay for? Right now, most private security guards, if you're working anything outside of, just a static site or a shift where you're patrolling a parking lot, if you have to have a firearm, if you have to have, outer gear, if you have to have a plate carrier, plates, individual first aid kits, anything, it's generally incumbent on the private security guard to provide all of that. Now, if you don't have a LLC, if you're not running a business of your own and you're just working for someone as a W-2 employee, you can't write that stuff off. It's a fee that you're incurring that you can't write off on your taxes, which I think is absolutely screwed up based on the new tax code, right? And if I'm wrong, please let me know. I think that's the way it goes now. So it could be another fee. It could be an invasion of privacy. My biggest thing is who makes those tests and by what standard? Because right now, if you're in an area, we talked about, let me go back here for a second. We talked about how the mandate for companies, or for officers rather, to declare the type of firearm, the model, some states are even having them give up the serial number to their companies, right? That's a de facto registry. Where am I going? I need to go this way. Hang on a second. I talked about how that's a de facto registry, that here in Oregon, we have 30,000 private security providers. Now, of those 30,000, I'm not aware of how many of those are armed security providers. But then you also have your Brinks trucks, your Loomis, your money couriers, things like that. If Oregon is requiring that anyone who works armed declare any firearm that they're going to potentially carry while working, and that would be for any type. So if I have a Glock 19, a Glock 45, and a Glock 17, even though for all intents and purposes, those are pretty much the same pistol, just in different configurations. If I want to have that on my armed certificate, I have to qualify with all three of those. So let's just imagine, let's just say 20,000. We'll just say 20,000. I know it's not 20,000. Let's say 20,000 armed security guards in Oregon have to declare every firearm that they potentially would want to carry while working. And I have to do all three of those. That is creating basically a de facto gun registration here in Oregon. Now, imagine if you're in an area that's anti-firearm, if you're in an area that's anti-gun, if you're in an area that really doesn't want armed security, and now you have to take a mental health evaluation, how easy would it be for them to arbitrarily say, nope, you didn't pass, and cut that 20,000 by 10,000 people, or cut that 20,000 by 20,000 people, right? There's no way to create a standardized version of that test where it would be foolproof in terms of somebody not using it for nefarious ways. That would be my biggest concern. I think on the surface, when people say, man, if you guys were to take, a mental health evaluation, you were to be screened, this would put people's, fears at bay. It would potentially lower any liability. If something were to happen, we were able to weed people out. But for me, my biggest fear is that it would be used as another form of gun control. Not trying to get on my conspiracy theory, BS today. I'm not trying to put the tinfoil hat on. But in places like California, Anytime that you've had to show cause in order for you to be able to carry your firearm, to be able to have your firearm in a concealed carry capacity, they've always found ways to weed people out. So that would be my biggest fear, my biggest concern for that. I'm interested to know what you guys think. Do you think that from an industry perspective, we're at a point where, since private security guards are being tasked with doing so much more, 2024 moving into 2025, I mean, we've got this election coming up. For those of you who don't know, Joe Biden just dropped out. I don't know if you're aware of this. Let me repeat that. For those of you who are unaware, Joe Biden has just dropped out of the 2024 presidential race. So now, you know, the potential for his successor is up in the air. That's going to create some uncertainty, right? But so much going on right now, potentially going into this election, going into, oh my God, there was almost a wreck in front of me. Sorry, that was crazy. That was almost really bad. Anyway, private security guards are being tasked with doing so much more than just, you know, shaking doors and watching parking lots. We're being put in situations where you're being lost capacity. So with that comes a higher responsibility, comes a higher level of expectation of professionalism. I can see where this is something that if you're in a state where that's not already mandated, I can see it coming down the pipe. And I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that potentially we could weed out some of these bad apples in our industry that are constantly making us look bad, that are constantly driving down the respect for our industry and what we do? Or do you think that it's a slippery slope that ultimately could be utilized against us in a negative way? I'm right there on the fence, guys. I do not ever agree with any invasion of privacy. I do not agree with giving the government any more power of oversight over people, individuals, or industry. However, I can see some benefits, so I'm on the fence, and I'm going to leave it up to you guys. I want to know what you think. Put your thoughts in the comment. And also in the comments, let me know who you think is going to be the Democrat nominee. I'm voting for Trump. At the end of the day, I'm riding with Trump, so, you know, I don't really care. But I want to know what you guys think. Who do you think is going to be the Democrat nominee? I'm very concerned from a Second Amendment standpoint with any Democrat. But if it's Kamala or if it's Gavin Newsom, that's going to be really bad for those of us who are proponents of the Second Amendment, right? So, interesting times, people, interesting times. All right, drop your comments down below. Let me know what you think about this. As always, if you're getting any benefit from what we're doing, like, share, and subscribe to the platform. And as always, if you're working, please be careful, watch your back, watch your six, and be great. All right, y'all take care.